So I'm not actually on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter since early this year, actually. But I get some news from Twitter from my friends at times on places like Facebook. And a few days ago, Peter Wright showed me this particular tweet recently from Lauren Southern. Can't stand most of the Manosphere. Why? Because I gave them the benefit of the doubt and got to know the community, and it's rotten inside and out. Get out while you can. Save yourselves, young men. Criticizing feminism is perfectly fine. You can do that without hating women. Alright, where to begin with this thing? So, can't stand most of the Manosphere. Note that she's saying most of the Manosphere. She doesn't mean the occasional troll. Because every group, even the Manosphere, even MGTOW, even the men's movement, maybe, has their share of trolls like any other group. But I would not call it most. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking right now. Maybe she's not trying to attack the men's rights movement at large. She's clarifying it Manosphere after all. It's my understanding that she's been since asked to define the Manosphere, but she hasn't been able to. Now, before I go any further about the Manosphere itself and Lauren's take on it, I want to address a certain article from 2012, I believe, from A Voice for Men, written by Paul Elam himself, actually. The article is entitled, Adios, See Ya, Goodbye, Manosphere. To quote from it, this is an excerpt provided to me also by Peter Wright. The Manosphere is worthless to men's rights activism. The Manosphere itself is a misnomer, a facade hidden behind an illusion. Looking for unity or support or action in that non-entity is nothing more than looking for water in an empty bucket. Similarly futile is the idea that friction or conflict with those ghosts is detrimental to the cause. It isn't detrimental because these men have nothing to do with the cause of rights than feminist bloggers or volleyball coaches. Pearl clutching over a badly needed division between them and activists is foolish. They are just another and comparatively minor source of attempts to bring us down. We do not have to be bothered with them, even if we are advocating on their behalf. I know what you're thinking. Well, in light of this sort of statement, maybe Lauren has a point about the Manosphere. But herein lies the problem. What is to be taken issue with is Lauren Southern's unironic use of the word Manosphere as this broad generalization of something that even really exists as such. The point is, it's an incoherent subject. Lauren Southern and those like her use the term manosphere unironically to not only encapsulate the trolls, the very few, what are considered fringes and minority, with the vast majority, the entirety of the men's issues sphere. Those that might get together as men and for being men. If there's any coherent use of the term manosphere, it is that more general umbrella. That's not what deserves criticism, but here we are with Lauren Southern here. It is also worth noting that manosphere is again erroneously used to describe the actual men's rights movement, as well as MGTOW and other subsets that actually deal with real men's issues. These groups, of course, get lambasted and lied about and slandered viciously. And manosphere is usually the label tacked on as this happens. It is on this basis that I deem Lauren Southern's use of the word manosphere as rather irresponsible. Another thing we can dissect about this tweet is that it's rotten inside and out. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a response that Peter Wright had for Lauren here that absolutely nails it in my opinion. Idiom, inside and out. Definition, thoroughly, down to the last detail. The men's issue sphere is rotten and misogynistic down to the last detail. Why didn't someone inform me before now? Best way to alert all these hapless women supporting men's issues. Peter has a point, I think. If one did actually go into the manosphere and explore it inside and out and get to know it as Lauren is pretending to here, then they would say that most have a point and most are not actually better. Besides, can somebody really know a movement inside and out? Even members of their own movement probably don't know their own movements inside and out. So this is a rather egregious complaint. It is almost on par with Jordan Peterson's faux pas regarding his comment about MGTOW. He proceeded to say that there's many of them online, but then saying I don't know how exactly prevalent they are. I'm paraphrasing there, but you get the point. One thing to be sure when somebody says something like that is that they don't know it inside and out. They have not studied it. It's just a generalization that they just said out of nowhere. Okay, it's this next part that gets really patronizing. Get out while you can. Save yourselves, young men. It amazes me to no end this endless amount of women who think that they are the sole authority on men's issues, being so bold as to tell men what to do with themselves. Get out while you can. Lest what? Before they discover that gynotrad women are just as, well, gynocentric as any other feminist? Save yourselves, young men. From what? Being independent? Actually speaking about men's issues as men, without women as the endpoints? Criticizing women is perfectly fine. You can do that without hating women. This is what this reads to me as. You can criticize the bullshit of feminism all you want, but we tradcon women? Off limits, dude. We are never wrong. And as far as that last crack about you can do that without hating women, well, criticizing women is not hating womankind. Sometimes you're just flat wrong. And if female accountability means anything, it also means the ability that they can take criticism. Just because a man criticizes you doesn't mean he's a misogynist. Actually, if she's really talking about the fringe trolls and not the majority, she's talking like they are the majority, but let's just entertain the idea that she's actually addressing the trolls. Well, assuming that these trolls actually hate women anyway, maybe they're just kind of trying to get a rise out of her or something like that, and trying to annoy her just for its own sake. But let's entertain that idea, and let's suppose they do hate women. Isn't telling them to stop hating women like telling rapists, like this teaching rapists not to rape kind of bullshit that the feminists do? In terms of like comebacks, I've already shown you Peter Wright's response to her, but I think Steve Brule of Studio Brule has a great one. Hey man, did you know that Lauren gave you a chance and you didn't measure up? Who knew that about that elusive female approval test? Oh right, everybody. Maybe we dodged a collective bullet. Maybe we did. He's absolutely right, of course, and it looks like Lauren's just complaining that, nobody's doing men's issues her way. And if you just don't measure up to it, then you're just a misogynist. Right out of the feminist playbook. This should be common knowledge, by the way. Conservatives and tradcons, they do play by that feminist playbook. The conservatives do seem to believe that the whole narrative that women were the oppressed ones back then, and by men at that. They buy that no less than the feminists. Alright, a few more comebacks, this time from Elizabeth Hobson. The best that can be said about those who seek to conserve traditional gynocentrism is at least they espouse gratitude for male sacrifice, but you can keep your claws out of my sons, who I raised to know that they're just as innately valuable as any chick. Elizabeth really gets it. Well, here's another one. Actually, I think this one came first, but whatever. Conservatism, social, is about pedestalizing women and making men disposable. Conservatives, political, consistently bow to feminist pleasure to save the woman. Okay, that's in response to a different follow-up tweet from Lauren Southern. There's absolutely nothing conservative about hating women or seeing them as objects. There's absolutely nothing Christian about it. Actually, I have a response to that. This is a bit of a hot take, but Christianity has just as much gynocentric elements as feminism does. Alright, aside from that one crack I just made, I'm not going to go into a whole discussion about religion here. But the point is that this is what Elizabeth was responding to. So I actually spoke to Elizabeth during all this, and she actually had some additional statements to make that she's allowed me to quote here on this video. What needs to be understood is that many men are justifiably angry, and that angry people can usually be treated with patience and compassion, and that this can help them to heal. We collectively forgive suffragettes for terrorism, but we don't forgive men for saying, bitches be crazy, or some shit. And Lauren's wholesale demonization of men who reject their current social status not only is a warning to some men to keep in line, but it's the kind of female tears passive-aggressive bullshit that can increase the level of disaffection towards women as a class and others. Yeah, I say she has a point. The more this kind of patronizing behavior towards men just for being men, the more disaffected that they will come across, and hence this ugly cycle. Before I get into another reply on the part of Lauren Southern, there are two others I want to actually mention here. Sydney Watson, yep, this about sums it up. It's on the same level as radical feminism. Daisy Cousins says, agree entirely with you both. I went to war with the Manosphere a couple years ago. They are the most violently vile, deluded, bitter people that I've ever come across. Right up there with contemporary feminists plus rape threats. You three are on the same level of thick-headedness. Actually, it's my understanding that Sydney Watson used to be an organizer for some March for Men in Australia, if I understood my information correctly. Should we be surprised that she's making these kind of claims now, or should we be not surprised due to their inevitable betrayal? With regards to Daisy Cousins' crack about going to war with the Manosphere, the only thing that comes to mind is some video she made before about what is MGTOW really all about. In the video, she proceeds to explain her understanding of what MGTOW is all about, and while she seems understanding on the surface, she then proceeds to lambast the troll minority. Note that the video is also titled, What is MGTOW Really All About? You'd think that the video would be the actual philosophy behind MGTOW and what the lifestyle actually is. All in all, she really kind of just contradicts herself in this video. The video is actually, supposed to be about what MGTOW is really about, but then it's just about misgivings about MGTOW while trying to cover her ass by saying that it's extremist MAGTOW. By the way, that's the pronunciation she uses, MAGTOW. That's kind of silly. But then again, who am I to judge? I called them MGTOW before. The point is, she's really just whining about people who disagree with her. And beyond the lip service, I don't really get the sense that she really respects MRAs, MGTOW, or anybody that actually speaks about men's issues, as long as it's in the way that she does not approve of. These women are as coherent and as for men's rights for being men's rights as Chloe Roma. And by that I mean they're not. Alright, it's really time to wrap this up, isn't it? So in an apparent response to Elizabeth, she tweeted, I'll be chatting with Rolo Tomassi about it tomorrow, where I'll get into more details. FYI, Karen Strawn has always been lovely, hence why I've said most, not all. Actually, those that thought that she was not talking about MRAs, well, they're proven wrong now. Lauren Southern is treating Karen Strawn as the MRA she is, and then proceeds to say, see, most, not all. In Lauren Southern's mind, manospheres equals men's rights. False and equivalence as you can get, as I've already stated in the beginning of this video. And what is this besides a backtrack? It resembles her going into damage control mode just because she's getting some rightful criticism. And if what she said was true, and that she's been inside and out of the MRA, because that's what we're taking the manosphere as for purposes of this video now, then she should know that it's not most. Most MRAs are not misogynist. In fact, I don't know if that any of them are. What Lauren Southern doesn't seem to know is that real misogynists tend to be kicked out of the men's movement. Some of you are probably thinking that I'm being a little too harsh on Lauren Southern and her Gynotrad cohorts there. Well, sorry, but not sorry. If you whine about being criticized and attributing it to the manosphere and misogyny, then you're not that much better than a feminist. It's time you admitted that. And some of you might think that me just picking apart this tweet is somehow productive, but well, here's the thing. Just like Jordan Peterson, Lauren Southern has a following, usually of men, is my understanding about it. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But the disaffected men that tried to turn to her, because, she's been anti-feminist, of course. We all know her for that. Turns around and says horseshit like this. Well, it's no better than what Paul Elam criticized Christina Hoff Sommers for, rightly. The kind that plays lip service to men and against contemporary feminism. By the way, all these three women, a big error they make is that these trolls are like radical or contemporary feminism. Feminism never was not rotten. But then you just turn around and just slander the men's movement for being the men's movement. Is it not right to just say something? Is it not right to speak in defense of us? This is why you don't trust anti-feminists just for being anti-feminists. Because their agenda is just as gynocentric as the feminists. It's just the other team. Hi everyone, a few points I forgot to bring up in the original video, so I'm just going to tack them on to the end right here. One follow-up Lauren had was to demonstrate, or rather flaunt, one of the more egregious responses that she's gotten. To be absolutely clear here, we can all agree that we don't condone these sort of things, not those tortures, nor the use of said photos for trolling purposes, that sort of thing. We can, however, also agree that this is just another minority action that gets a whole lot of more attention than anything benevolent. And it's obviously not representative, or it's only as representative as she wants to have it in her mind anyway. Because if it really were the majority, I think what we call the Manosphere might look entirely different. It's going to look much worse. It's going to be completely opposite to raising awareness to men's issues, such as warning against gynocentric women and the laws that center themselves around them, so as to potentially shatter an innocent man's life. Just raising awareness to those sort of issues. It'll be the opposite of that, to be sure. But there's another thing I want to add in response to her just flaunting those emails for white knights to come and defend her. So, Lauren, how familiar are you with the American phenomenon of parents that post before and after photos of their infant sons before they get their genitals mutilated? They make fun and are fully aware of the excruciating pain and trauma that an infant male goes through, the worst pain they experience, and they just post it on Facebook, public, right in the open, for others to just laugh at. Misguided mothers and fathers, from my observation, probably more mothers than fathers, though I could be wrong on that assessment, do this incredibly regularly and treat the trauma and the brain damage as something to joke about. It's entertainment value to them. Should I say that I know the world of mothers inside and out, just on the account of these select women that actually post these kind of things? Should I decry all mothers as despicable creatures that want nothing short of torture for their infant sons, their own infant sons, and to ensure that they enter their first days of life as a damaged and broken creature? I won't stoop to that, of course, but ironically, considering that this is such a prevalent thing among American women, I think I would have a better case than what you're trying to do here, if I were to do such a thing. Alright, nobody thinks online abuse is a good thing, but you aren't special as a woman for getting this treatment, and neither is the perpetrator special for being the Manosphere boogeyman. I'm just saying, you're using this as an example of what the Manosphere is supposedly really like, but as I'm pointing out, something more egregious is happening, and if we complain about this kind of stuff, we in the men's movement, the Manosphere if you will, are lambasted and are told to just take it like a man and stop complaining. Lauren, I don't know what your position on MGM actually is, so I'm not going to make any assumptions here. I'll only say that, well, I don't catch you speaking out against this sort of thing, even as an example of toxic traditionalism. Because traditionalism, that which you seem to advocate, is the basis by which this sort of thing keeps on continuing. And the side effect here, the unfortunate thing, is just these infant sons' genital cutting is used for cheap entertainment. Alright, that's all I'm going to say about that one. But by the way, guys, I actually did listen to the recording of the stream that Lauren subsequently had with Rolo Tomassi. I think that Rolo had some good points there. I wasn't terribly fond of the fact that they both seem to treat the Manosphere as this tangible, substantial community to speak about, really. I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of processing that in a wrong way, but Rolo had some good clarifications to make, and I especially like the fact that he spoke about the gynocentric knee-jerk behavior, about think about the women. That sort of mentality in reference to the recent Afghanistan crisis. I am not, however, convinced that Lauren is persuaded otherwise or considers herself as standing corrected. I've noticed that she keeps on bringing up granular, predictable examples of what she thinks the Manosphere is. It's like, she's completely brushing away the the wisdom behind any given warnings those in the Manosphere seem to get. She's usually kind of fixated on these men as losers who can't get laid, or they have relationship troubles with women or something like that. Not once am I getting the whole, women are enabled to screw over their husbands in divorce court or anything like that. One thing that really stuck in my craw, though, is that she paid lip service to the majority of suicides are men thing, but then she kind of goes on and say that, it's dangerous for women too. It's bad for women too because, such a man in that mental state is physically dangerous to women. You just can't let a men's issue actually stand and speak for itself as a men's issue, can you, Lauren? Men's mental well-being isn't an end to itself, apparently, and has to be addressed as a women's issue, right? It has to serve the women, else it's just loser uselessness. See, this is the bullshit about the women are affected to gynocentric talking points that I see too many in my own movement kind of resort to making. These women who try to use this tactic, they try to play it up as consideration for both sexes, but in the end is gynocentric. Oh, by the way, this tweet isn't the first time that Lauren's had rather misandric hot takes either. One time she lambasted the idea of men actually being in charge of childcare and not even exaggerating by much here. Once again, Peter right here has the appropriate response. Sorry, Lauren, but men are absolutely capable of childcare and are even brilliant at it when it falls on them primarily to do it. Alright, that's all I had now on the subject. Just figured that it was about high time that Laura and Southern and people like Sydney and Daisy get called out for the Gynotrads that they are, and before it gets swept under the rug again. The big takeaway to get from this video, and why I did it, why I critiqued this series of tweets, is that attitudes of these women amount to nothing more than you only get to talk about men's issues when you do it our way. Us women, who knows what's best for you men. Don't let them tell you that.